So, my new bike. A new bike added to the stable. Another Moto Guzzi. Yeah, this is the first ride I'm going to do. We're going to go for a little ride, and afterwards I will show you the bike and do a little inspection, because this bike has a bit of history and I want to fix her up and make her a beautiful bike again. So, cockpit. I really love this cockpit. It's a special story about this bike because I've had this bike before. Not the exact same bike, but the exact same model. It was my first Moto Guzzi, and it was the bike that I did my first trips on. I really loved the bike, and I sold it for a Multistrada, which is also a really, really good bike. But yeah, somehow I missed this bike, and I saw this opportunity, so I thought, okay, let's buy it. It has around 49,000 kilometers, so sounds like a lot, but this bike can handle a lot. Started. Sound is really good. So this is, yeah, technically not the first ride, because I did a ride yesterday to wash the bike, and that was not a good ride, because after washing it, the bike ran really bad, and it was fixed by drying the bike out. So that has to do a little bit. Okay. Turn signals off. I hope you're hearing me correctly, because the bike does have some wind protection, but not a lot. So this bike, Moto Guzzi 1200 Sport V-twin, around 96 horsepower, drive shaft, ABS. It's a 2012. They also call it the Brava, but the Brava is a bit of another model, and this one is a little bit more special. So yeah, first impressions or second impressions, this bike rides better than I remember, and it's really weird, because I remember this bike as a really heavy bike, not that fast, but this bike feels this bike feels more than capable, fast enough. It has a lot of grunt, sounds amazing, yeah, and it's more nimble than I remember. So that's really weird. It's not because of the tires, because I had almost the same tires on that bike, but maybe, yeah, I'm 5 years further down the road, 5 years more experience on riding bikes. I'm also riding off-road with the Desert X, so maybe somehow, because I ride off-road and I'm used to having no traction at all, this bike feels nimble. It has a lot of traction. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it rides better than I remember. It's a heavy bike. It's around 240 kilos, I think, wet, so with all the fluids in it. But yeah, that adds to the character, I think. It's not the most modern bike, it's not the most fast bike, but yeah, it's a Guzzi, you know. And one thing that I really love about this bike is this dash. It's so big. You have three how do you say it, 3 compartments, or maybe 4 even. You have the rev counter on the left, you have the speedo in the middle, fuel gauge, really big fuel gauge on the right, and a trip computer with adds a little bit of a modern touch. This bike is not the most unreliable bike if you think about Moto Guzzis. This bike is made after the switch to Aprilia. So Aprilia, or the Piaggio group, bought Moto Guzzi and made sure that they have a little bit of extra quality control. So there are a lot of parts that are almost the same as the Aprilia ones, like the ABS pump or the inside of the dash, the ECU, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot the same. And yeah, as I said, I had this bike previously. I did my biggest trips, or not my biggest trips, but my first trips on it. One solo trip and one with a good friend of mine. And yeah, I also had a weak spot for this bike. So this is my 4th Moto Guzzi right now, and it's the 2nd one in the stable. So the Grezzo is not going to be sold or anything like that. I'm going to keep that bike, and I was also trying to keep this bike. So this bike has a little bit of history because it had some damage and the previous owner fixed her up, and he was like, okay, I'm still missing my previous Harley Davidson, so I want to go back, so I'm going to sell it. But because it has a little bit of damage, people are not tend to buy this bike really fast. So that's where I come in. I gave him a little bit of a lowball offer, and he was like, okay, I know that you're a Guzzi lover, and I think you're going to treat her well, and you're going to fix her up even better than I did, so I'm going to sell it to you. So fast forward, a week later, I bought the bike, I picked it up, I made a little bit of video about that. I'm not sure I'm going to include it in this video, but you will see soon enough. And yeah, got the bike. Now, first thing that I noticed on this bike is that the tires are pretty good, although a little bit flat at the back, because I think the previous owner was not the most spirited rider. Now, it drives, the engine is pretty good, I think. This bike has a QD exhaust, and the catalyst or the catalyzer or something like that is removed. So that means that the bike is it definitely needs to tune, because it has a really big on-off effect, and that's not the thing that I remember of this bike. The bike was pretty smooth, the previous one, so there is something with that. So I'm going to give it a beetle map, I think, and doing some other stuff with it to make it even better. And maybe I'm even going on the dyno to test it. Oh, the engine sounds so good. The gearbox is, as I remember, agricultural but perfect. And yeah, so that's good. There is one thing that I noticed when braking, the front, I think one of the discs is a bit warped, so I need to replace that. So I'm going to ask Moto Master if they have brake discs for this bike. They also supplied brake discs for my Grezzo, which was fine, so I was happy with that. Well, what else? Yeah, so the brakes, they need some replacing, and I think that's that. Yeah, there's not a lot to it. It does need some cosmetic repairs, or let's say better repairs than it had. So I'm going to try that out. I think I'm going to paint it just in black. I'm going to make this thing black, and there's one thing that you should notice, and that's it has 2 different mirrors. So I want 2 the same, of course, so I'm checking if I can find anything that provides me with 2 good mirrors. So I'm going to find a quiet spot, and then I will show you the bike in full glory. Okay. Turn signals off. I hope you're hearing me correctly, because the bike does have some wind protection, but not a lot. So this bike a Moto Guzzi 1200 Sport V-twin, around 96 horsepower, drive shaft, ABS. It's a 2012. They also call it the Brava, but the Brava is a bit of another model, and this one is a little bit more special. So yeah, first impressions or second impressions, this bike rides better than I remember, and it's really weird because I remember this bike as a really heavy bike, not that fast, but this bike feels, this bike feels more than capable, fast enough. It has a lot of grunt, sounds amazing, yeah, and it's more nimble than I remember. So that's really weird. It's not because of the tires, because I had almost the same tires on that bike, but maybe, yeah, I'm 5 years further down the road, 5 years more experience on riding bikes. I'm also riding off-road with the Desert X, so maybe somehow, because I ride off-road and I'm used to having no traction at all, this bike feels nimble. It has a lot of traction. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it rides better than I remember. It's a heavy bike. It's around 240 kilos, I think, wet, so with all the fluids in it. But yeah, that adds to the character, I think. It's not the most modern bike, it's not the most fast bike, but yeah, it's a Guzzi, you know. And one thing that I really love about this bike is this dash. It's so big. You have three, how do you say it, 3 compartments, or maybe 4 even. You have the rev counter on the left, you have the speedo in the middle, fuel gauge, really big fuel gauge on the right, and a trip computer with adds a little bit of a modern touch. This bike is not the most unreliable bike if you think about Moto Guzzis. This bike is made after the switch to Aprilia. So Aprilia, or the Piaggio group, bought Moto Guzzi and made sure that they have a little bit of extra quality control. So there are a lot of parts that are almost the same as the Aprilia ones, like the ABS pump or the inside of the dash. It's pretty weird, by the way. This bike feels faster than my Moto Guzzi Grigio, which on paper shouldn't be that way. This bike had around, as I said, 49,000 kilometers, and on paper it has around 96 horsepower, and I think the Moto Guzzi has around 109 or something like that. So the Moto Guzzi, the Grigio, should be faster than this bike, but somehow this bike feels more throatier, more, yeah, faster. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe because of the better wind protection, or yeah, I'm not sure, but it's weird. So I think it needs a tune, and I'm very curious what it delivers on the dyno, and we'll find it out after the first service. So that's also a thing. This bike is in need of a service, so I'm going to give it that, because the bike deserves it. I think I'm also going to adjust the valves myself, so that's a first, because I've never done that before, but it should be pretty straightforward with this bike. You can reach it pretty easily, and yeah, that's why I'm going to try it myself, because it needs it. So no new tires, new brake discs, maybe some maybe a reminder for the turn signal, because I always forget that one. I'm pretty spoiled with my BMW and with my Desert XOS auto cancelling turn signals, and this one doesn't, of course, so I'm forgetting it all the time. So I'm still looking for a quiet spot to check the bike. Hopefully we'll find it pretty soon. So this should be a quiet spot, and I will show you the bike. So this is it. The Moto Guzzi 1200 Sport. So there are some small things, some damages where we're going to expect it from front to back, and let's see what we're going to change, repair or anything. So, and this is also good for my own documentation because I tend to forget. So it should have damage on both sides, a lighter damage on this side and some heavier damage on the other side. So the brake discs, those are crooked, so I need to replace that. There's a little bit of rust over here, but that is not a big problem. I can make them rust free, maybe coat them. So it has some damage here. I'm not sure why it has damage here, so maybe I'm going to replace this whole panel, or maybe not, I'm not sure. I really hate this Italian flag design. It's just stupid, so it needs to be black in my opinion, or even original chrome. Turn signals on the front are pretty okay. I think they're acceptable on this bike. Yeah, the Italian flag, it fits the bike, but I don't like it. It's too much Italian flag. So this is Italian, that's Italian, that's Italian, and that's Italian. So on the front, yeah, I think I'm going to paint this one as the same as my previous bike. It was all black. These are Chinese levers, pretty okay, but still I think they wiggle too much, so I'm going to replace that for maybe something from my friends at Pro Brake. I'm also going to replace the mirrors, replace the bar end weights. The handlebar was touching the tank a bit, but it's not crooked, so I moved the handlebar a bit forward and it's perfect right now, so it's not going to touch it. So the tank is in pretty the fuel tank, the cover is in pretty good condition, I think, but this sticker is on it to protect the paint, but I'm thinking that that beneath the sticker the paint is even more awful, so maybe I'm to need to paint the whole tank again. So this right cover has the most damage of all the covers, but it's not a big deal. So I'm going to let it be fixed by a pro. So I think I'm going to coat it black, and I'm going to coat this thing red. So here's a little bit of damage on the engine, but I'm going to touch it up with some paint. The engine itself is pretty okay, needs some cleaning, but that's it. No damage on the paint itself. Also on the front, this just needs some love. Maybe I'm going to paint it also in gloss black, the same as this one. So this one was bent. I hope you can see it, but this thing was bent. The brake, it was bent back, but I trust it because it was not too bent. But I think I'm going to replace it, or maybe even coat it black, the same as this one. I'm also going to coat this black, and I'm also going to coat this one black again, and this one, everything black. So this is weird because it has a Breva logo, and that shouldn't be, because it's a 1200 Sport. But the thing is, because it had damage, the guy replaced the whole back of it and only could find a Brave L1. So I'm going to paint it again, remove the sticker. I'm not sure if I'm going to put on a new sticker or just gonna keep it low profile. There's a little bit of damage on the shaft drive, but that's not a lot. I'm not going to do anything with that. Maybe touch it up with a little bit of paint. Rims are pretty good. So the back one, so this one is also replaced. This should be black, and it was gone with the previous owners. I'm going to paint it black again and remove the stickers. Just black all, and maybe only a little Italian flag, I'm not sure. So this one is a little bit damaged, and there was a really big luggage holder on the back, so I removed it, and I need to buy those covers. So this one is not original, and it is really bad. It's ugly, so I'm going to replace it together with the whole inside, because there are holes in it, and that's why I had some troubles yesterday after washing the bike. The electrical stuff was all really weird. So I think I'm going to replace the rear turn signals. Maybe I'm going to replace everything then, just for smaller ones. It has a beautiful QD exhaust with a D-cat, so there's no cat on it, so it sounds really good, but it needs a tune. That one has no damage because it was replaced after the damage. There's a little bit of damage on the rear swing arm, but I think I'm not going to do anything with that. This one is from a Brava, and it's pretty ugly. It has been painted, but not in a good way, so I'm going to repaint that together with the other side. The left cylinder head is really good, but I'm going to paint that black, same as the right. So I think that's it. I think that's it for the bike. I'm going to ride it some more. Maybe I will notice something else, but it rides pretty good. So I'm overall very happy, and I think this repair will cost me around maybe 700-800 euros, maybe more, but then it will be a beautiful bike again.